From TPN at technophilespodcast.com, I'm David Geisler, and this is the Technophiles Podcast.
Skritter is an application that is designed to teach people to read and write Chinese and Japanese, because characters are kind of tough and a little overwhelming for people.
This Tuesday, the cast meets with Jake Gill in the UWM Digital Humanities Lab to talk about his app Skritter and what it's like for him to run a startup company with employees that are located all over the world. After the break, they all discuss the idea of schools incorporating coding as a core subject. Get ready for some stroke-level feedback because this is Technophiles' first live episode. All right, everybody. Welcome to tonight's show. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. This is very exciting. You can round of applause. That's okay. We're crazy excited about this. It's all right. The Technophiles podcast has been a show that we're in our 7th season right now. We've been recording for like 5 or 6 years. We're really excited about going into our 8th season after the holidays. We've already got a couple ideas on new things to do with the show and everything. But one of the most exciting things that's happening this season is our opportunity to do some live shows here at UWM. This all started rolling maybe 6-7 months ago. We started talking with a few people here, and we started conversations with the Digital Humanities Lab and met a lot of really amazing and smart people, and they are letting us use this space, and I am really, really excited about that. I'm really excited about it because we have, over the years we've gotten a lot of listeners that we're very proud of. We know that we have hundreds of thousands of listeners all over the globe listening to our show. But here in Milwaukee, our analytics usually show us that it's, it's a little bit more Chicago, a little bit more the coasts, and it's growing in Milwaukee, which is like really fun because this is where we are. We are in Milwaukee and we like to talk about technology here. So this is just such an exciting thing to be able to actually have a physical presence in Milwaukee and have this relationship with UWM is super awesome. So what I want to do is introduce our cast members tonight. Normally we just do this. Normally we're all just sitting around the table already, but I thought this would be kind of fun. So for starters, it doesn't have to be ridiculous or anything. I think we're going to go with, let's have Vee Laabs come up. Vee Laabs is fantastic. She joined the show a few months ago. Vee, I think you know where you're sitting. And, I got to say, too, all these people, we've had a lot of people go through the Technophiles podcast. People come and they go because it's all voluntary. None of us are getting paid for this yet. And it's just awesome that twice a week these people want to take time out of their life to have these conversations, to talk about awesome things that are happening all over the world. Let's have Krista-Lee come up now. Fantastic. She's amazing. I'll note Krista-Lee is a producer in these live shows along with me. This is a series. We're doing 6 of these. We have another one coming out in October. Is it 13th, Krista-Lee? 14th. I always get it a little bit wrong. October 14th. And then we've got a few more, and then we've got more next semester, which is awesome. And then last but not least, I've got Tony Stiglich, who he's going to be out in the audience tonight. But come on up, Tony. How you doing, Tony? You've been with us. I know. Here, I'm going to be giving you the mic here in just a second. We can have a moment.
Just reflect on where we've been.
Yes, this is good. I love it. Tony, why don't you stand here for a second? Because I just realized I didn't introduce our amazing guest tonight.
No.
Mr. Jake Gill. Jake, why don't you come on up here? Fantastic. Now, we just met in person only about a month ago, and we're going to sit down here and talk all about your life and your app Skritter and all the things that you've done with your startup company. Yeah. And I'm so excited about it. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hand Tony this mic. You and I, we're going to walk around the tables like in a, probably like a butterfly, like a beautiful, beautiful butterfly. Yeah. And we're going to be good, all right? I'll see you on the other side. Here we go. Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Synchronized sitting, ladies and gentlemen.
We need our nose plugs. For that. Fantastic.
Beautiful.
Let me just wire up my earpiece here.
Yeah.
Make sure we're all right. Okay.
While you're doing that, I just want to point out that Jake is an alumni of UWM.
This is true. We've got a few of them here tonight. Oh, Krista-Lee, you were an alumni. You were an instructor here last year.
I'm still a student here.
Oh, really?
I will graduate in December.
Fair enough. And we've got our cameraman in the back, Nate, went to UWM, and then Jake, and then you and I don't know. We're the oddballs here.
Yeah, we're the weirdos. One who went to an all-women's college. And
I'm the one that went to the one in Chicago.
Yeah.
But, Jake, thank you so much for being here. Seriously. Why don't we just jump right into this? We've spent enough time there on the intro and everything. Jake runs an app that is called Skritter, and it's a Chinese and Japanese language learning app. Isn't that right?
That is very right. Thanks for having me.
Yes, indeed. Hey, how you doing?
I'm really well.
You having a good evening so far and everything?
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So Jake and I, we met a month or so ago and had a little pre-interview here, and we met over some coffee and talked about your entire life story, and I found it fascinating. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit about it tonight. Why don't we start with you run the company Skritter and the apps for Android and iOS, and it's also a web-based company and stuff like that. But if you needed to just flat out introduce yourself to everyone else here, what else could you say about yourself? Well, I'm totally amazing. I apologize, Jake.
So hi, everyone. So let's see. When I talk to people, so I work for Skritter, and I guess my title is director, but it's not my company. And I like to tell the people that I work with every day and the teachers that I interact with and stuff that I'm a Chinese teacher by trade. I went to UWM Milwaukee. I studied global studies with a focus on communications. I did a minor in Chinese and a certificate in Asian studies or whatever, but that was basically just like taking 30, 40 credits of Chinese, and they're like, yes, you've earned this. But I was passionate about language a little bit later in life. I started studying Chinese in college, and in high school I kind of thought I was a language failure.
Were you bad? Were you bad at language?
I was awful.
I was terrible.
Did you have like bad? Because I used to be really, really good at Spanish. Like I would.
Are you kidding me? Really?
Yeah. When I was in junior high and like the beginning of high school, I would have like 103% as my final grade in Spanish classes.
Vee Laabs. I failed it twice.
Oh, jeez.
I did. I had to switch gears. It did not work for me.
But I had a professor that just they made it unfun, like reduced everything down to points and stuff.
Which was a good thing for you?
No, bad.
But you still did really good.
No.
I'm so confused.
I did good until that teacher. And then
until
the
teacher.
Yeah.
Got it.
So now I've been trying to.
Now, Krista-Lee, you've got a lot of language too. Obviously, going over to Thailand and things like that.
Yeah.
So, were there any other languages that you had a hard time with, or did you just jump in? Because with Jake, he had a hard time, but then I think, yes, Krista-Lee.
I seem to go up and down. So I started with French, and it was terrible, and then I switched to Spanish and got straight A's, and then I switched to Japanese and did terrible, and then I switched to Chinese, and I did great.
This can happen. It's weird. It's like, I don't know if it's...
The next one's doomed.
It's like
but after that, you're good.
Every language.
Right.
It can get like that. It's weird how it works. Yeah. So, Jake, no-go with Chinese initially?
No-go with German.
Oh, German!
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Conjugation, stuff like that. I don't know, it didn't work. And I hate to blame teachers because I don't think I was very motivated. But it wasn't working out. And so after high school, I worked for a while, actually. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was into cars, and, I was in high school during Fast and the Furious and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm going to do cars.
Someday I'm going to jump a car from one building to another.
Yeah.
No, I'm just going to, get pulled over a lot and...
and work on your gravelly voice.
Yeah.
What is it?
What do you want?
That's good. That works. That works.
No, so while I was doing this, a friend and I, we decided, hey, working for someone is cool, but we have our own ideas, and so we decided to start a business. Actually, we went to some university, some site visit, and now I can't even remember what it was because I wasn't going to go there anyways. But I went with my friend, and on the way home, he's like, you know what? I'm not going to go to school. Let's open a company. And
okay.
And so we're like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And we had this grand idea of building cars and having, basically we wanted a dealership where you could go and buy really cool cars. And then you could finance them because, kids who want cool cars don't have any money.
Just non-specific cool cars.
I mean, non-specific cool cars. But you come in, you're like, I have this idea for this great car, and I want you to build it, and then I'll get the bank to give me a loan, and then I'll pay for it over the next 50 years, right? Mm-hmm. So this was really fun. But then you go to a bank when you're 19, you're like, hey, give me a loan for this business. And they're like, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you know? So we're like, okay, well, the next best thing we can do is import car parts and sell parts and do what other businesses do. So we did that for a little while, and that was cool. But it didn't really make much money, and we were just middlemen. So I had this other idea, and I knew some friends in Indonesia. And there's a point to all this, guys. I promise.
No.
I was like, at some point he leaves the country.
No.
At some point.
So I have a friend, and he's from Indonesia. And he's like, hey man, hey dude. You know, he's got this great Indonesian accent, and he said, dude, really awesome. But he's like, come to Indonesia with me. We have such a car scene, and everything is really cheap there. Like, I can put you in contact with people. So I'm like, all right, I'm there. You know, mom, dad, I'm gonna leave for a little while, and you know, I hope you're okay with that. So I went to Indonesia for a month.
When was this? Like,
I was 19, but I'd never been out of the country before and anything like that. And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go. And I didn't speak any Indonesian beforehand. You know, I kind of thought English could get me.
You went
by.
there fresh, like you nothing.
I went there fresh. I knew nothing, and
man.
I found that while I was there, forced into this situation, that I could learn a lot of the language very quickly. And I had to interact with people. Like, my friend was doing other things. He was working. He was kind of like transitioning back into other things. So I got to wander around and interact with Indonesian people. And while I was doing that, I'm like, I don't know how to say this. So I'd pick up a dictionary and look up something and
obviously that's how your brain learns. That
it was
different.
I needed to be there. I needed to be interacting. I needed to be forced to use this language.
Yeah.
But what it did for me was it gave me this kind of like language confidence again. It was like, you know what? It wasn't that I'm bad at language, because I don't think anyone is. It was just that I wasn't challenged, or I wasn't into it, or I don't know what it was, but something clicked to the point where I was like, hey, I can do this.
Well, the context is totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, you finally have like a practical application of it. You
Yeah.
can see how it's used like
Sure.
in the real world, instead of just sitting in a classroom
Exactly.
being like, okay, this is how you say breakfast in German.
Right.
So you're down there, and like, how do you get on this crazy wave of this Skritter situation?
Okay, so that was, all right, Indonesia was Indonesia, and let's just, okay, the business failed, right?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, but that's okay, because I learned a lot of lessons, and ultimately I was like, all right, I want to go back to school. So go back to school, and a few of my friends, one of them's taking Japanese, one of them takes in Chinese, and I remember pretty distinctly, they're like arguing at this coffee shop one night about which language is better. And I mean, they both sounded pretty fun. And they're both both of these guys are talking about how they're going abroad soon, and they have these amazing opportunities, and they're all through UWM Milwaukee. And I was like, I was already enrolled back in school, but I wasn't signed up for Chinese yet. And so I'm like, okay, I want to take a language. Like, this sounds fun. I'm going to do one of these. So I go home at night and sign up for a language. Well, Japanese is closed. And that was unfortunate, but Chinese...
Closed because it was all filled up?
It was all full, and
Yeah.
I was ignorant. I didn't know that I could walk into a classroom and be like, hey, I really want to learn this language, like, give me a spot. I think a teacher would be like, absolutely.
I'm sorry,
How
we're
many
full.
students
You know, but I'm like, all right, that's fine.
No way
I can't
fit
sign
another
up.
chair in the room.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't sign up, that's fine. I'll take Chinese.
Okay.
And I got like the last spot,
Whoa.
and I was in. And that summer, I started doing Chinese Pod, which is a podcast. This was like
This is
early
news to
podcast.
me.
Yeah.
What?
So this was like 2006-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, right around the dawn of podcasts. And I was working somewhere, and they're like, I download my podcast, and I do my little lessons, and I can introduce myself and do these fun things. So I walk into the classroom on day one, and they're doing roll call, and I'm like, 大家好, hello, hi everyone, 我叫 Jake Gill. And my teacher's like, whoa. That sounds pretty good. I'm like, yes. And so from right there, I was like, I'm in. This teacher is encouraging. I like already have a little bit of interest in this. My friends are taking this. They're going abroad. And so that was like day one, I'm in love with the language. Fast forward 5 years later, I'm graduating from university.
Okay.
And I'm going to Taiwan to do a master's degree in education because, like I said, Chinese teacher, right? This is what I wanted to do. And that summer I was at a program, and they were, we were basically, it was a bunch of foreigners who wanted to teach Chinese. So we went to this immersion program in Beijing. Again, immersion, it rocks. It's so good. Like, no English. That is the way to learn a language. Just go
Maybe
and
so.
do it.
Yeah.
But I was there, and this guy was like, hey, man, you got to check out Skritter. It's awesome. You can learn how to read and write characters. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty great. And,
Was it kind of a new thing at the time?
Yeah, it was not super new, but I didn't know about it.
Okay, fair enough.
New to you.
But I was into this. I was into technology, and so we were doing this presentation. But he's like, "Hey, man, Skritter, you got to check it out." So I check it out, and I don't know how it happened, but he introduced this guy, Ben. He introduced me to the guys that ran Skritter at the time, and he was like, "Hey, guys, this Jake guy likes to write about Chinese, and he's passionate about it, and he likes language, and you should hire him for like a blogger and
Yeah.
and do stuff." So I started doing that. and I just kind of wiggled my way in there for the next couple of years while I was doing grad school.
Hey, how's it going over here? What are you doing? Hey.
Oh, you guys need me for a meeting? Oh, you need beta testing? Like, I'm in. Yeah, let me do it. Oh, school sales? I'm a teacher. I can sell to these people. And eventually, they're like, well, we got to do something else. And they were kind of like they were neglecting the app. Let's just put it that way. And I stepped up.
Was it not the main focus in the business? Was it like, we're doing this business and then I guess we have an app?
Well,
they
already had the app. So like the app was out, the website was out, it was making money.
Yeah.
And the guys that started it were like, hey, we want to do something else. We've got this other idea.
Got it.
And you know, they're
keeping up with
entrepreneurs. They want to be making big money and doing all this stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, so they leave and do their thing, and they were just kind of under the impression that Skritter would like continue to make money and didn't need updates or management or someone to check email. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna do this, and I'm gonna write down like 40 hours a week and hope that they pay me for it, and they did. And then finally they were like, hey man, you're sort of like doing this for us. Do you want to just kind of like make this official and come run our business? So I said yes.
Nice. So you just invited yourself there enough that they just invited you in.
I just kept showing up.
Jake will do it. Jake's like, absolutely. And I will. So let's talk a little bit about how the app works. I know you have some photos with you right now and stuff like that. I don't know if it's fully working right now. It might have to
find out.
Pop up. It may give us a second. Oh, it looks like it's everything good. You don't have to do a big old presentation for us with these photos or anything, but if anything comes up that you think would be fun to share. I know I saw some of the assets and it was like, in the olden days, there was just a few of you around a computer. I saw some stuff like that. But let's talk a little bit about how Skritter works these days and what it's like for you to run and manage that company right now.
Sure. So Skritter, we keep saying the name, but Skritter is an application that is designed to teach people to read and write Chinese and Japanese. Because characters are kind of tough and a little overwhelming for people.
Yeah.
And so Skritter was a byproduct actually of a college project. Someone was working on it. They wanted to they were computer science majors, and they're like, hey, I'm gonna make something that is a little bit more fun and can allow me to practice characters without writing it on a pen and paper. Because rote learning, like just going and writing over and over and over again, is a really, really, really boring task, and a lot of people don't like to do it.
And how do you even know if you're doing it right?
Right.
You copy
and paste. So you look at like a box that has a character on it, and you kind of know stroke order. You learn stroke order right away, and so you know how the character is supposed to be written, and so you just write it over and over again.
Okay.
And commit it to like long-term. Well, you memorize it for short-term use. You take a test, and then you forget how to write it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like what happens.
Got it.
So Skritter kind of went to solve that, and it does this in a way of using spaced repetition system. Have any of you heard of SRS? Anyone in here?
I have no idea what that is.
No, I have no idea what that is.
Okay. So spaced repetition systems are basically what happens is we understand that our memory is fallible, right? It's going to forget things. Mm-hmm. We're really good at remembering things for short periods of time, but if we want to commit them to long-term memory, we kind of have to do it a lot. We have to be repetitive.
Yeah.
But there's also some things that we grab quicker than others, right? Like remembering some things might be really easy for you, but other things really hard. So what spaced repetition does is it says anything that's really easy, we're not going to like quiz you on that. Like a typical flashcard application. You see 1 + 1 = 2. You answer it correctly, and it's like, all right, you got that right. Maybe I'll ask you what 1 + 1 equals in like 2 minutes, and if you get it right again, then I'm not going to worry about that. That we're going to just take and put really far away. I'll maybe ask you about that stuff.
That kind of logic is what you're saying. That what kind of logic is what Skritter does?
Yeah, Skritter does something like this, but like SRS in general, it takes things that you know, and it says, we're not gonna ask you about like this. We're not gonna quiz you on something like this for a long time. What we're gonna quiz you on are the things that are difficult to you.
Yeah.
And the things that are difficult to you, we're gonna show you over and over again until they become easy enough that we can just kick them into long-term memory. And so the stuff that you're struggling with, you study more. The stuff that you're having an easy time with, you study less. And thus the cycle goes, and your long-term memory, keeps taking things, and hopefully you can remember them longer. And the goal with Skritter is to kind of get everything that you know, like all the characters that are in your like vocabulary list or your textbooks or whatever, and give you like 90 to 95% retention on those over the long term.
Okay.
Whoa.
Can we talk about the interface a little bit?
Crazy.
Sure. So what I can pull up here is, now this is web stuff, and I'll give you guys an image.
It may take a second to
it's gotta,
to
like,
load
pop
in
in.
here.
But I can just kind of show you a...
You know what? It's going to take more than a second. We got a little exclamation point here. Oh, no, there it is.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah, high resolution.
Yeah. So this right here, you guys are kind of looking at the... this is a writing prompt on Skritter, and this is like old Skritter. This is Skritter 1.0. But what you can kind of see here is we have, this giant like rice paper thing. So we want to bring the writing experience to the screen or to the computer in this case. And you can see on the bottom, we have these buttons here, and those like 1, 2, 3, 4, that is the SRS, like the grading system. So when you're writing something on Skritter, if you get it right, then Skritter's like, okay, we'll push that relative to everything that's in your study queue. We'll push that either further or sooner into like what you have to study. But you can see how like, so here's the writing of it. You can see 绝对, this thing up here.
Oh, right,
like
right,
the pronunciation. We have the
You can zoom in if you
definition. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So up here, yeah, we have the definition. We have like an example sentence. We have mnemonics, so you can create stories and do these kinds of things to help you remember. We have, like on the bottom, we have, because a lot of words in Chinese are 2 characters, so we break them up so you can see one character, the other character, how those characters are broken down into like other components. So, there's a ton of information there for language learners, and all this stuff is really useful for someone who's trying to, master tons of characters.
Yeah. It makes all those connections like just off of one thing. Like you're knocking out like 4 things at the same time.
Right, exactly.
And
awesome.
This is a web-based interface right here that we're looking at?
This is the web-based interface. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the
app screenshots?
App screenshots.
That's
We do
okay.
have
I
video,
saw,
but...
I saw a video
I'm sorry,
of
I don't have the video in that folder. I apologize.
I saw
There's
a
no
video,
video,
of
sorry,
it
guys.
online, and it's like this, but refined and vertical and nice looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's it like? One of the other things I want to talk to you about real quick. Skritter is really exciting the way it works. It's almost like flashcards, but it has algorithms behind, layman's terms, like flashcards, but it has algorithms behind it to know which ones to actually probably continue testing you on. And the fact that it's interactive and all that kind of stuff makes it, improves the retention.
Yeah.
What's it like running the company? I understand there's 4 or 5 of you guys. None of you live in the same state. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. So here's like where the magic happens. This is my office at home.
Oh, I love like the 3-foot
Stormtrooper and Darth Vader over there.
Well, at least you like. My wife hates them. She's like, I'm not going into your office.
It's okay.
No, this is the geek house.
I really
right?
want one of those, but with John Cena. They make those.
Nice.
You would be.
No, so actually one of our guys, Josh, he's a developer. He works, he lives in Milwaukee. He actually made the move up. He used to live in China for a while, but he's like, if we're gonna get this project done, we should be working together and collaborating a little bit more closely. So, I've got his desk over there, and my desk is there, and
Oh, so
we work
sometimes
together.
you guys are in the same space.
Yeah, it's not every day, because he's like, hey man, I develop, like, you bother me sometimes. I just need to be in the zone.
Hey,
often-
as long as you acknowledge that.
How often do you guys find you need to update the app and stuff? Like, now that it's up and rolling, what is a general month like for you guys? You know what
Well,
I mean?
actually, right now it's insane because we're trying to redo the entire website. So we've got,
Ooh,
yeah.
we know what that's like.
Redoing websites?
Yeah.
Yeah?
That
Well,
was,
and
that
with
was a big
this
process.
redo,
Oh,
right,
ours?
you're trying to add
Yes,
more
indeed, sorry.
gamification into
Yeah.
the process.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean we're doing that. So like I guess the typical month right now is just insanity, where they're working overtime every day of the week trying to push out new product, and so that we can kind of get it into beta test. We want our users right now. I mean, they've been dealing with. You guys saw that website. It's not great. Like it's old. It's 2007. Here, I mean it's a little cleaner.
Yeah,
This is kind
that's a
of the
little
new.
nicer.
This is the
That is
dark
beautiful.
theme. For the after hours Skritter session. But we're just kind of updating. We're cleaning up the look. This is kind of an example of our home screen now.
Yeah, this is great.
So we have goals. We have streaks. We have you can see like your total progress. We kind of we want people to be using this and engaging in it daily. And so we're doing all of these updates. And so right now it's just a lot of updates. Our users, we want to get them in. We want them beta testing.
Yeah.
After that, we can kind of hook up the cool stuff like A/B testing and things like that. Let's see if I have.
How do you choose beta testers for your stuff? Do you just have
Do you,
like
like,
friends
people sign
and
in?
stuff?
We just throw on. So we use Discourse as a forum management tool, and so we just kind of put down there like, hey, Skritter users that are already paying us money, come check out the new site.
Oh,
And they're pretty excited about it.
The business model is it's a subscription-based business model, isn't that right?
Oh yeah.
So we're subscription based. It is $15 a month. Typically, there's coupons out there to get it a little bit cheaper, and then we also sell to schools, and we give them a huge discount. You know, it's like $10 per student per year.
Wow.
Eventually, it comes down to. So it's a pretty good deal. But like as far as management is concerned, we use a variety of features. I don't know. I have their logos here, but. I'm not going to put them up. So when we're doing communication, so it's me and Josh, and we live here. I've got one guy, Ula. I actually met him in grad school, but he lives in Sweden. We've got one guy in Southern California and one guy in Northern California. And so it's us, and we use a company called Slack.
Oh, love
Yeah,
Slack.
sure.
Yeah.
This is it's like a message board for businesses, and so we've got all these different channels for design and development and
It almost
support.
lets you keep conversation flow going, even though it's almost it's basically just a chat message board, but it's more robust. But
Yeah, you can sort it out. And
it
have
kind of
different
gives you
features.
that virtual of like popping over the cubicle and like, hey, did you check on the, or what did you think of
Yeah.
the?
Right.
I
have
understand.
file
Exactly.
sharing and things like that.
Yeah, and then like our meetings, they kind of look a little bit like this. So that's Ula in the middle here. He must be saying something profound. And, but then we're all on the bottom, and sometimes when it's a bad hair day, you know, we're like, no mics, no cameras today, guys. But you know, we're all online and we're just like chatting. So we have weekly meetings.
I was just gonna ask, like, do you still schedule? It sounds like you kind of run it, quote unquote, like an office a little bit. It's
We try to. We found that works the best.
Do you do hours? Do you do like 9 to 5s and stuff, or how does that work?
Yeah.
Really?
We do. And I'm very I'm aware that some of my staff is in different places, so they kind of have their own hours. But we're kind of 8:30 to 5:30 here, and then our guys in California are roughly like 9 to 5, 9 to 6 on their time. And so there's a little bit of overlap. We just make sure that for some day, our goal is kind of 3 hours of like being green. And what I mean by that is like you're on Slack, you can be accessible, like I know you're there, you know, we're all working. And so we can communicate back and forth. And then I have mini meetings that are like 30-minute bursts with a few of my guys during the week, and then one team meeting during the week to kind of get everything together.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. We're kind of getting close to break here, but is there any final things you'd like to talk about with Skritter or your journey to where you are now? It's kind of a broad question. I know. Well, I don't want to give you an opportunity.
Well, I just think that, you know, so I started as a teacher, and I really enjoyed teaching. I love being in the classroom, but I kind of, you know, this is a different classroom experience, I guess, because I've gone from having like 20 or 30 students to having like, you know, thousands around the world, and you know, that's pretty cool. It's very fun, I've always been into technology. I've been using it, and so now I get this opportunity to create something. And I think for me personally, like I'm not a developer. I don't do that kind of stuff. I'm getting to understand more of it. I'm kind of learning how to do this like very basic code and CSS and HTML. But it's one of those things where like if you have this dream and you connect with the right people, you can build some pretty amazing things. And that was an eye-opener because I wasn't aware of that before.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You have this situation where you have people all over the world working together. How did you do that, secure that? How do you just find a person from, you know, Sweden, or you just find a person from California? Like, how does that happen? It's not like you.
How does test form?
So for us, I mean, we hire a lot of internal. Like, if you wanna work for Skritter, you need to kind of know about us. We want you to love Skritter.
Got it.
Because we're doing this. Like, we get people yelling at us all the time. Oh, you're doing this wrong and that wrong. It's too much money. But like, we would just want to build it. Where's your new updates? That's the biggest one. But it's like, we just want to build this great product and work on this. So we're working on these things all the time. And, you know, I think there's amazing places all over to find people, you know, message boards, or like there are other companies that I know of, and they just go and they hire some random developer from Europe who knows nothing about their product.
Right.
And that works too.
Really.
But for us, it was just, you know, the people that work for us are all familiar with Skritter. We love Skritter, and that's why we're doing it.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, Jake, it has been fantastic to talk with you. You're obviously going to stick around with us here for the rest of the show. I can't wait. I hope some people have some questions or comments for you, which we will talk about in just a moment. But first, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about, we just found a story that popped up in the news thank you very much. Hey, look at that. Spreading the love there a little bit, helping us out.
Fitting in just fine.
Jake, appreciate it. He'll do. We're going to come back after the break and talk about a story that we found about kids learning how to code in school and what different states are doing for that, and if it's a good thing, if it's a bad thing, how it should be handled, and all of that. So I'll see you guys in about 30 seconds. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Marvelous. Hey everyone, I just want to take a few seconds to tell you about ABC Audio Video, a sponsor of our Technophiles podcast live series at UWM. ABC Audio Video designs, sells, and custom installs audio and video systems in new construction or existing homes, as well as commercial spaces. They offer sound, practical ideas for your specific project and never oversell or overcomplicate. And you can find them on Facebook or go to their website, abcaudiovideo.com. ABC Audio Video, home entertainment, simply done right. Okay, we are back from the break, and I am here with Krista-Lee, Jake Gill, and Vee Malone, I almost said.
Oh.
Vee Laabs.
Wow.
Vee, I'm sorry. Vee Laabs, and Tony Stiglich out there in the audience. Tony, hey, how's it going out there?
Hello out there.
Got me with my mic off. It's going well out here, Dave.
All right.
Yeah, everything's good out in the field.
I do feel like a
Traffic's
field
looking good.
reporter a bit. Yeah.
Weather's looking good.
Back to you in the studio.
Fantastic. Krista-Lee, let's tell everyone what we're talking about.
Okay, so what we're talking about basically is coding in schools, teaching kids how to code.
It's happening. It's happening all over the place.
It is happening. We don't know how much success. This is quite new.
Yes.
I mean, they definitely weren't teaching coding when I was in school. And no, I'm not that old. But I was from a city school, so, money, computers.
Wait, do you mean like computer science degrees or?
No,
We're talking like
code,
elementary
literally,
schools,
like we were
middle
just talking about.
schools,
This is why I
high
thought this would be
schools.
fun. We were
Yeah.
talking about language, not being a developer, all that kind of stuff. Kids are being taught part of like reading, writing, and blah 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 is coding in different school systems right now of all different kinds of degrees. Sometimes it's an after-school program, sometimes it's full curriculum, and we found an article on was it the Journal Sentinel? I
It
think?
was the Washington Post.
Washington Post that kind of addressed this.
But they're talking about like making this a core subject like reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? So this would be a part of the regular school day. And some school districts are talking about starting in kindergarten.
Yeah.
I mean,
Basically
this was
setting it up like
fascinating.
following a recipe,
Yeah.
right?
There's apps. There's the dot and bow thing out there right now. The robots that the kids can use, like literally
Right.
5-year-olds can learn computer
Okay,
programming.
I didn't read a lot on that, but what is that?
Oh, we had an episode on it like a couple years ago. But basically, what it does is it doesn't necessarily teach them the code, but it kind of teaches them the logic and the syntax of ifs and thens and all that kind of stuff.
All right. So it's
And
kind
then
of similar to the
eventually-
apps that they talk about. In some of these
Perhaps, and then you
articles.
can code these robots to roll around. It almost feels like a toy to the kid.
Yeah.
But then eventually, as they learn more, they start making those instructions less. Is it what obtuse or less? You have to do more detail. You have to
Yeah.
put in more detail. All of a sudden,
More
you are
complex.
writing code in once you're 8 and 9 years old, stuff like that. But I digress.
Right. Well, okay. So, and everybody, at least, maybe I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people agree that this is a really good idea. This is important skill in today's day and age to have. What this article is really talking about, though, is some of the roadblocks to this. And it's not just throwing money at a problem, right?
Right,
Because
right.
there's a lot of that already happening. I mean, even if you look at, I don't know if anyone's kept up with the gift that Zuckerberg gave to, was it the New Jersey schools?
Right.
Right. They've had mixed results there, and that was in total with the matching funds close to $200 million for
Whoa.
questionable results is
Oh.
what I've been hearing.
Okay, so he just gave them money and said, like,
It
do
kind of
whatever.
sounds like this is one of those things where a certain amount of money does a good thing, but then
Yeah.
after that, more money doesn't necessarily make it better.
Yeah.
Well, but there's a lot of problems, right? So another example that was actually in here was the city of New York, who is having they're on a 10-year plan for $81 million to do basically computer science for all, and these are in the grade schools, right?
This will affect some kids' entire elementary career.
Yes.
yeah.
But there are several problems, like the fact that they would need to hire 5,000 new teachers.
Need
Yeah.
Yes,
get to?
Wait, like,
they need to. Where you find
Oh, and it's gotta be in the
5,000
budget.
teachers
Teachers
to
that
teach
they're-
computer science in New York City
Well,
public school.
yeah, maybe
it is,
so.
yeah, it is like
And
a whole other way of thinking. and
they
a whole
haven't
other-
Because the
got-
kids are learning in the first place. Where are they? Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a weird thing. We gotta wait
It
another
is,
generation.
and they don't yet have a certification for computer science for K through 12.
Oh.
In that state, at least.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I didn't even realize there would be like a requirement for that. I didn't.
So I could apply and be like, I run Skritter, like, give me a job.
Yeah. Like,
Okay, we got one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can teach this to like an 8-year-old.
I don't know what I'm
or
doing,
whatever.
kids. Sorry.
Yeah. I guess.
Well, right. So I mean, so that's just one of the problems, and then the other problem is this is mostly political, right? That's where the money's coming from because public schools are political, unfortunately. But so like take for example New York, it's a 10-year plan. Well, the politicians who are setting it up, they're not going to be in office. So however this goes, at the end of the 10 years, even if it blows up in their face, it's not really in their face. They're not holding that position anymore. So they're kind of gone. And so you kind of lose accountability in some of these long-term plans as well. And I'm just
they're really long-term results because just to see how it affects like the growth of a child and how they think about the process of coding or anything now, since it's such an early skill to develop, that the results will take a long time because they have to grow up in order for us to figure out what the results are.
Right. And just so it's clear, like I'm not really trying to pick on New York. You're actually seeing similar things all around the world, right? And so you have similar things in Great Britain and Australia. I'm going to stick with the Anglophone countries just because I know what they're doing. But I'm sure you're seeing this elsewhere as well. So
what specifically? What is not working? It's just I don't.
Well, it's not that this isn't working. This is just starting, right? But we already have like. In the case of New York, they don't have 5,000 teachers.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay.
So we're talking
great
about
on paper, hard to do the research. Yeah. Okay.
Right. We're at the point right now where it's like, yes, here's the idea, here it is on paper, and there's like implementation problems. So we don't even we're not even to the point where we can say like it's not working because we don't have. Yeah. It's like trying to bake cookies and you don't have sugar. Like, how did the cookies turn out? Well, I didn't have sugar.
Well, you got to do something where the cookies make sugar. So you got to do something where the kids. I'm not joking. Like, teach the cookies how to make sugar.
Well, and they're talking about that.
Right.
They're talking about like because I think this is kind of riffing off of this hour of code thing, but they're already saying like, hey, look, we have hour of code where all these kids get together and bash on code, and like this is super cool. But how do we turn this into a curriculum that lasts for a semester or a year or 5 years?
An hour of code, real quick, for everyone out here who didn't read the article. That's all. It's like a single class, real quick at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's like one day, and all these companies that are into development get together and they're like, hey, we're going to promote this for the day. And I think don't quote me on this, but maybe Google started this.
These fact checking. We're seeing. I mean, but again, this is a great thing. But yes, of course, how does it expand?
Well, and then they're talking about like flipped learning, this flipped classroom, or this idea where you go home and you're kind of like you're working on this project, and maybe your peers, someone who understands this a little bit better than you, can kind of like go and look at your code and say, hey, look, you want to use this algorithm here or this, or like that's a little bit wrong. And so it's not only about the teacher-student interaction, but also the student-student interaction, student platform interaction, like everything that's kind of going on there.
I agree. And code changes so quickly these days. Every 6 months, it's almost it's almost different, completely different half the time. Well, maybe every year it's almost completely different. But I wonder if there's a version of this. It's a little bit like a metaphor of what you were saying about your life, where it's okay. I couldn't learn this way, but I did learn when I was just thrown into it. Now, I'm not saying that the kids are going to learn better if they're just thrown into it, but if we don't have the resources to teach the other way, maybe we can do the thrown into it way. This is kind of vague, but do you see where I'm going with this at all? Am I not being clear?
Do you have an example?
Well, I don't know. Can the kids workshop together? Can you just set up times where they're learning the code with each other, a bit like what Jake was just speaking to?
Yeah, and I think that does solve one of the problems of maybe the teachers of the code not knowing everything so much.
Does the teacher need to know more than the students?
Can
maybe
the
not.
Students help teach each other? Because I'm familiar with that kind of.
Let's all do Codecademy together.
I mean.
Here, real quick, I have your fact check.
It
was actually a nonprofit, but partially funded by Google and the Bill Gates Foundation and several other.
Nice. Okay, I was trying to figure that out too.
Because these kids, they go home and learn it anyway. I mean, some of them, a very small percentage, go home and do that anyway.
There's lots of venues for them to be like exposed to code or the method of coding stuff. In one of the articles that's linked in the zillion hyperlinks that are in the main article, is an NPR story about elementary education relating to coding and how there's these various apps out there, such as Scratch Junior, which is kind of introducing them to that way of code thinking where, okay, we're going to make a scene. So here's your object, give it actions to do. So I have a frog. I'm going to give it code it instructions in order to go left and go up and go left and go up and go left and go up, and it's hopping. There you go. You've made this hop.
Right.
And then you can go even like more simple for like there's no words, no reading involved. And this is one called the Foos. And it's like little 3D characters, and you have your little like toolbox of actions.
Yeah.
So you need the little policewoman to go get the star. So you have a right arrow, and that's it. And then it's like, okay, I got to put the right arrow there in the tray to make it go. And
they're using a graphic interface, and that's just okay.
And that's how early it starts. So you make it more like a game. You start doing it with your friends, and then you start teaching yourself.
That's
and
cool.
Your friends work with you. And
now, we've had some stories on this show just even a few months ago. This pops up every like month or two right now, where some company's making something that teaches codes to kids, and we had one with that glowing bracelet where the kids were flat out writing regular scripts and stuff like that to make it work, and it was working. And so like I think like Dot and Bow and like maybe this graphical interface is great to get really, really young kids kind of accidentally thinking in that logic.
Yes, to just break it like.
Well, and that was also focusing on women in coding since
the bracelet one.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Since it's more of a social communication type thing rather than, that's actually what girls were more drawn to rather than the idea of like, oh, I can sync up this flower to make it match my outfit. Like it's more practical and more fun that way.
Wait, what are you talking about?
She's talking about the bracelet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the girls who were into coding who were like looking at this product, they were more interested in the fact that you can like get it to sync up to your social media stuff or figure out when your friends are in the vicinity, rather than just coding it to change color.
Coding for the sake of coding or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a little, I mean, at the end of the day, code is like almost, to me, in someone's brain, it's almost like someone playing with building blocks or Legos. I think the logic is very, very similar. Or maybe like Technic Legos. There's obviously commands and actions and things like that. But what were you going to say there, Krista-Lee?
Two things actually. So with that story, I think pinpointed is when you're talking about teaching coding to kids, what adults think kids are actually interested in, and then what kids are actually interested in. We saw in that story that there was a break between this.
Yes.
And if you're going to teach kids something and have them, stay engaged, then you need to know what it is.
Once an episode, Krista-Lee smacks her microphone. She likes to talk with her hands.
I do. I gotta stop.
Nothing wrong with it.
But the other thing is, I was gonna say, and I think, although don't quote me on this, that this is more of a gateway for male players. But when you have or male coders. Rather than something specifically for teaching coding, there's other ways that people play with it. Like, for example, I would say my introduction into coding was writing mods for games.
Okay.
And it's always really simple little things, but it's like, oh, well, my character won't do this, but I can write a mod, which is not very complicated. And it's not like I'm going to go from that to, coding my own full-on computer program, but it's that start of figuring out how to put in commands to get results.
A lot of people these days are always like, oh, HTML, it started with MySpace. I love changing my MySpace page to HTML, blah, 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 and like that. And it's for some people that really triggers, and then they go learn much deeper stuff.
It gets you into that mindset, and you learn kind of that language. You start recognizing the patterns and things like that, where it's like, if this code says this, then this happens, and this affects this action and whatever. Like, you break it down, and it's like learning a whole other language. It's kind of cool.
So how
but
does
it's a very
this?
Flexible one.
So I guess the real thing we're circling around here is like, how is this something that we can structure and quantify and put into schools, but how can we also let it be free? Like, what are we talking about here?
Like, be its own thing and like have it be practical as well?
I don't know what the answer is. This article, was it basically just saying it's not, we don't know how it is yet, or is it, did it have some ideas? Jake, do you have any thoughts on this matter here about what we're talking about?
So, I mean, I think the article is kind of saying, hey, look, it makes sense to get these kids starting early with computer programming. Like, we want them to learn these languages. There could be arguments here. I've heard like other, my friends in like that are working on, languages, and they write code all the time, and they're like, Mandarin's pretty sweet as like a second language for my child, but I think I'm just going to have them writing like JavaScript and stuff when they're like, just get them early. Like, I want them dreaming this stuff, because then they're going to come up with some incredible stuff. So I think like here it's like all these companies agree, and I think in the article it's like New York, San Francisco, Chicago, all these places are saying, hey, let's get these kids early. Let's get them in on this. And companies like Google, like Facebook, they're all like, hey, we're in. Let's throw down some money for this.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, I think it's going to be a good thing. I don't know how they're going to execute on it. And I think the article is raising the questions like Krista-Lee was talking about. Where are we going to get the teachers? What is the certification? Like, what are we going to teach? What's the curriculum like? But, this is a step in the right direction. The fact that we're starting it early is probably a good thing. And one of the big things that I saw in the article is they're kind of talking about like, it's going to do different things to your brain, much like learning another language or an instrument or something like this. You don't know what mental connections are going to be made by these kids. Yeah. Especially at that young of an age. And it's going to be a great enabler for people who, let's say you're not in like the greatest family situation. You don't have a computer at home. You don't have like any of these things. You come to school and you can get interaction with this. And this is something that they might not have had before. Right. So these kind of kids who are less fortunate than others, they get this experience, and hopefully that's going to lead to a more diverse kind of field. Because right now you're walking around Silicon Valley, it's probably mostly white dudes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I went to a film school, and sometimes there was jokes about like, oh, these film books by the by the time you buy the book, it's too late and there's new cameras out or something like that, and that can kind of like math. For the most part, doesn't change every year. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a staple.
We figured out a new way to make equations.
There's always like there's new things, but really teaching those basics, that's not gonna, that's gonna be a different situation. But like this is, I think the key problem that I'm seeing here is, or the key situation is that the tipping point has happened, and that what the kids need to learn is happening quicker than you can even quote write a book about it. It's happening quicker than we can. Yeah. Than we can library it and teach it, right? Yeah. I'm not saying that as a correct sentence, but do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, we're like in that wild experimentation phase of like, okay, we're gonna just stop being hypothetical and we're just gonna like try letting kids do this and see what happens, and if it works or not, or how well it works.
In the time it would take to write a book about that code, I mean, you can do basics, and there's plenty of books out there for basics and stuff like that, but man, that's tricky. Yeah. So how do you find the teachers? How do you do this? I think that, I don't know, maybe some people have some thoughts about this in the third act here, but I think that trick feels weird, but I think it's that the teachers are mentors for them all to learn together. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Or like, they learn with the kids.
Because there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with like, of course this is new code. It's not like this person has to be this, they can be really smart and have a lot of history and have a lot of maturity and bring that as a teacher, I think. I don't know. I'm getting off on my own thing here, but I think I'm trying to come up with some kind of solution.
I just really want to sit in on like a little, like an elementary school level coding class and see what happens. That sounds exciting. I want to learn.
Right. Too. If you're looking at like kindergartners, first, second grader, are you more concerned with someone who is like, I am a computer coder, like I know how to do this stuff? Or are you concerned with a teacher who generally is interested in making sure that these kids have fun experiencing this,
a lot of times,
this? Like, let's do it together, and oh my gosh, look what you're doing! Like now we just wrote like a new basic schedule for our day, and like look, it's resource time because Jimmy just said that it was with his awesome schedule that he made yesterday. Like round of applause, let's go out and play. Yeah.
I often think of code. It's true, and I often think of code the metaphor of like growing a garden and learning code, I think, is very, very similar. And if you imagine like someone being an amazing gardener, there's a teacher, there's this mentor or whatever, and they're great at gardening, they generally know you need to do this to this plant, this to that plant, this to this plant. But if you can imagine a scenario where these kids are with that person in a garden, in this thing I'm building right now in my story, you can imagine there's going to be variables that change things, and maybe there's going to be surprises, and it's okay for that person to say, I know a lot about plants, but look how interesting look what happened here. You know what I mean? I think it's okay.
Well, the problem is I don't think you can just take a programmer and then plop them down in any K through 12 and expect them to be able to teach, because teaching is itself a skill.
Right.
And I don't want to pull out stereotypes here, but all the programmers I know are generally lacking in social skills. Yeah. How are they going to handle a class
they're
full of students?
Their education is more programming classes.
Right. So this is, and then, and even if, let's say you take somebody who has a lot of programming skills and you're like, even if you offered to like send them to school for free for the certification, it's like, hello, would you like to have this very difficult job and make a third of what you could be if you were working as a full-time programmer? Good luck with that one.
Yeah.
Tricky. Well, we're kind of coming up on our break here. Any closing comments from you here, Vee?
I want to download all of these kids' apps.
I'm still waiting for somebody to send us the bracelet.
Yeah. What the heck? We're waiting on this. I can't even remember the bracelet's name.
I can't remember the name either, but they were cool.
Sorry, please.
So
well, they were still in development.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were being kickstarted.
Yeah.
Well,
So
were.
maybe
We'll
they'll
have to
have
see
like
if they
regular
actually
production
happened or
after
not.
that.
But that was a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Download all the kids. Do you code much right now?
No, but I really enjoy that pattern of thinking and the problem solving that comes with it. Like
Yeah.
that's like how that left side of my brain works, where it's like, all right, we got a goal we got to get to. Let's put all this stuff into place and get there.
You are blowing my mind right now because I feel like coding is actually super right brain because the
Really?
code. Maybe I'm wrong, but the code is good at the logical stuff, and as
Yeah.
a coder, you need to be good at the
Yeah, like
building
the
it
right side
thing,
is
you
your
know,
problem
like a block is
solving.
going to be a
Yeah.
block, but you can be creative with how those blocks go together.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe it's both. Maybe it's
it
a
is
skill set of both.
Maybe- yeah.
Frankly,
Yeah.
actually, that probably is. Jake, how do you feel about all this? And we'll probably go to break here in a little bit.
I mean, I think that it's a great idea. We definitely need to be doing it. I think it needs to be fun in the classroom. Like, these kids have to enjoy it. It can't just be, you can't just go home and like not do your coding homework, and that's going to happen. If it's just your typical classroom, if it's like math, if it's like these other things, then a lot of people are going to ignore it, and the people that are good at it are going to continue to be good at it. But I think we need to kind of like open it up even more and get everyone involved in like building something, because that's what it's about at the end.
Yeah.
Like, let's give these students the ability to like express
Make it
themselves.
thing.
I'm reminded right now of a story from a couple years ago that we talked about where some key developers of companies were kind of controversially saying, if you want a job, quit school and just come work at our company. Like, many developers saying that's the way to do it. Just quit school and learn code, and then you'll get a job. And it was very controversial, and I don't know if I agree or disagree, but it is definitely the other end of this kind of spectrum here. It's an aggressive statement. It'd be easy for someone who owns a company to say that, but I think something in the middle can be found for sure. Mm-hmm. Anything with you, Krista-Lee, and we'll get out of here.
No, I think I shared all my thoughts.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, this is what we're going to do. This is a new thing for us. We're going to take a quick little break here, 30 seconds. And when we come back, we've got a mic in the audience. We've got Tony Stiglich out there. And if anybody has any questions for Jake or even just comments about things we've talked about here, Tony can come around and we'd like to have that conversation with you. Whatever that is an experiment for us as well. So I'll see you guys in 30 seconds, and we'll see all of you guys in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I used the deep voice for that one. All right, see you in a bit. Hey everybody, David Geisler here, co-host of Branching Dialogue. I am with my co-host, Mr. Tony Rome. Tony, why don't you tell people a little bit about this show we're doing?
So it's called Branching Dialogue. Comes out every Thursday, and we like to talk about video games, topics in video games. A little bit about our favorite video games.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a reminiscent factor. I kind of like it. Sometimes we look back. And people can find it on Facebook and iTunes and YouTube by searching Branching Dialogue.
We're also on Twitter @Branch Dialogue.
Fantastic. There it is. Tony, I'll see you on Thursday.
I'm there.
All right, we are back from our break. Vee is trying to hold it together here. She's having a hard time. That break, the audience missed it. The listening audience totally missed that amazing Antonio Banderas joke that I landed.
I'm gonna be doing
Totally stuck it.
I'm gonna be doing the church laugh for like the rest of the show.
All I gotta say is, that's what it takes. That's what it
In the
takes.
middle of the night.
Yeah, then Antonio, he's coming for us. Run for your lives. All right, everybody. So let's see. Krista-Lee, Jake, Vee, thank you very much for being here yet again.
Yeah.
We've got Tony sitting out there, and I'm sure. So usually, this is kind of interesting for anybody who maybe doesn't listen to the show or anyone who does. Usually, somewhere halfway through every topic, Tony has a very actually moment where he goes, "Well, I was thinking."
Oh boy.
Specifically, this is why it won't work.
So we've got
Well-
Tony out in the audience tonight. But
I may have some thoughts.
If anybody has any questions for Jake and about Skritter, or even just what it's like for him in his day-to-day life of running this company, that is totally awesome. They don't have to be specific questions. If you have any comments or thoughts about the things that we talked about
If you have
in the
stories about
second half,
coding, I want to hear stories.
stories about coding, people have coded. If you have stories about Antonio Banderas, we'd like to hear those.
Yeah.
Very important, very,
Cut
very
out the scary
important.
parts at home.
Tony Stiglich.
Well, first of
doing?
all, anyone who's doing the Technophiles drinking game at home, we brought up the bracelet again, so take a drink.
It's true. That's true. There is one. No, there is a little bit of a drinking game with Technophiles. It's unofficial.
Every time Tony has reservations.
Every time Tony has reservations. It used to be every time I interrupt someone, but I'm trying to hold back a little bit. I just get excited. There used to be there was one with Tina was when she would say, well, actually.
Oh.
That's it.
Yeah.
We've got a few of them.
I don't
Tony,
have
how you doing out there? How you been?
Good. I do have some thoughts, or questions, I guess.
Ooh, we're in it.
Although I do support the idea of having coding in these schools, especially since it's already paid for. If I read the article correctly, and one of you can sort of chime in if I didn't, they've talked about adding this, and I think you mentioned it, to the sort of 3 R's, which always bothers me because they're not R's.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
It's 2
maybe we
R's
can
and a
finally
W.
rename that.
Oh, and an A.
So if you have reading, writing, arithmetic, and coding,
We'll
to
call it
me-
ARC.
what's that?
We'll call it ARC.
Arc?
Or
What about a W?
Orc.
yeah,
writing?
rack.
Nobody
Crowd
writes anymore.
work?
We have computers.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Arco?
Maybe it takes the place.
Arqua? Arqua has a good ring to it, I think.
All right.
Quar.
Sorry,
Quar.
go
Quar
ahead.
is
Your
good.
question was.
Quar.
It's all right.
The kids need
So-
they need to learn more quar in school.
Yeah.
Really neglecting it. So while I appreciate that this is available, and I think it's good to have sort of computer science be an available option, I would argue that that's too narrow of a focus to have be a core thing that has to be taught.
Really?
To me, it seems well. So
You
I
think
would,
of it almost like a skill.
I would so
Like
what
a
I would
subset?
argue is maybe add science
Okay.
to that sort of core there, because
Yeah.
I find it hard to justify the fact that coding is going to add that much more than, say, physics, chemistry, biology, etc. Computer science definitely needs to be involved in that.
You know, I
But
gotta say,
it seems
yeah.
like such a specific topic to add to a core curriculum that I think if you add science to it rather than something that specific, you can then have room to support things like dying science programs, for example.
yeah.
And we talked about it being sort of a cross-relational or multi. You're going to make new pathways of doing it. You're seeing the practical applications of math in the case of coding. Well, I would argue that chemistry, which maybe I'm slightly biased as someone who studied chemistry, or physics or whatever. Provides that
it's
same
interesting
thing.
having Tony like really loaded up at the end of the show here, isn't it? Usually,
Yeah.
Usually it comes out in drips.
Well,
I'm loving it, Tony. I'm for it.
Just
This is because this is
I don't want
interesting.
to stick my hand
You're
up
absolutely
from the
right.
audience, and be like, guys.
No, you're absolutely right.
This is
But
the most
how would you-
eloquent heckler we've
Do
ever
you
had.
guys? Yeah. Do you think I'm sort of on the right path
I
here?
see where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I do think that coding is very much exact. It is a language type of discipline. It's a way to communicate, like writing, the way writing works or math works. Coding is I think in that same. It's another lane in that like brain space, and I think that is different than like just all of the sciences. In fact, I don't even know if coding fits into science. I don't even know where it fits. That's the
It
whole
would be
point.
like computer science.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's what we call it, but
Yeah.
it's getting bigger than that.
Yeah, it is. It's not like you're the same animal as like science and chemistry and biology and whatever. It's it's something that's new. We have to figure out kind of where it fits and how it relates to everything. But it's not going away anytime soon. So
I think it's
No.
more than a skill set.
But if you're adding it to these
Yeah?
core,
Ooh, we got a thought over
Oh
here.
yeah.
if you're adding it to the core things, then you're going to have to test on it, and it becomes that. And there are other implications.
Here, hand it down. So who are you?
Hi, my name is Pui Lai.
Fantastic.
Hi. So I think that coding is considered a language because you are using it to communicate.
Yeah.
So it is reading and writing and arithmetic because coding, at the end of the day, it's really algorithm of zeros and ones as binary code.
Yeah.
So therefore, there's a place in it for schools. I think of it as a foreign language. So perhaps you can teach it as an elective, or if families really want to start, teach kids a language early. So as you know, kids actually learn languages better as a young child.
Right.
You can learn multiple languages faster because your brain is growing so quickly and can absorb so much more information than as an adult. So I do believe that teaching a language such as coding early in life is beneficial for the
Right.
child if they're especially interested in it, or if the family wants to introduce that to the child. So there's definitely a place in it in a school and after-school program.
Do you
where
feel
it's
this
elective.
computer science way of classifying, is that accurate anymore?
or arts? Like
Arts?
an arts. Because
I mean,
the
I
language,
think code is
the
kind
language
of an art,
arts,
honestly,
where it's writing and reading
Yeah, but
and
how many
art.
kids don't have like art access anymore because that funding gets cut? So if you don't make it core, like, is everyone in the world going to have this
Okay,
opportunity?
so a little bit, you got to play the politics a little
Right.
bit. or have the
But
strategy.
you can also say it is part of the
well, that's
core
where Tony's
because
going.
you are reading and writing a code. You are learning how to read just a different language. And actually, if you code it's in English, HTML and all of that. So, there is a place for it in the school system if you're arguing about how to make it funded, I guess.
Yeah, sure. That's interesting. And Tony, thank you very much. Tony, what direction were you going with that then? You were...
Same sort of idea in this case, more, politically. You're going to have to, it's not that I don't think that it should be taught. I think to add it as one of these sort of core disciplines is going to change a lot of the ways that you have to test. To me, it seems odd to say, okay, this may be a bad example, but you have to take the SAT. There's a math portion, a writing portion, a reading portion.
Should there be a code portion?
But why not science? Why not things that are
because you can express science in code. Like I think it's
That's
a different
true.
layer. I think it's a different
it's
layer.
It's just very specific. I
love this point. I love what you're bringing.
I'd rather see it more high level than that, I guess.
Okay. All right.
I think I would actually agree with Tony here. Like, I really wish that there was access to it at a younger age, right? Like, I had no access to it as a child. And maybe have some kind of like very small introduction in like kindergarten, first grade. I really like that for all of the language points that Pui made.
Yeah.
But then maybe not have it.
Number 2. Whoa, going for a record here.
Maybe not have it required after that point, right? So you have the introduction, so you get them young. But at the same time, I would say we should be introducing kindergartens and first graders into a lot more things, right? Just so that seed is there. And then it can become an elective later on. So a kid can say like, oh, I really liked coding. I'm going to take that class. Or somebody else can be like, I really don't like coding, but I loved Chinese. So I'm going to go take that, right? Or whatever else was there.
One thing that I think, with all the conversation that's going on here is like, I'm just thinking about it from the sense of like, if we standardize something like this, if we say, okay, you have to go and take this test on like, can you do this or not? Like, that is totally the wrong way to look at these things. You are using this language to try and build something. You need to inspire these kids to go out and actually want to use it. So if you're like, yeah, you got to cram this thing so that you can like pass this stupid exam and get into a college. That's like, do you think they're going to go home and actually use this to like build something? No, you want to inspire them to be like, hey, look, this is the awesome thing that you can do. Like, I don't know, maybe it starts with like you're in 6th grade. All right, we're going to take a class on like updating your Instagram so that it like has cool looks to it. And you're going to learn basic CSS. You're going to learn HTML. You're going to do all these very basic things. But from there, you're going to start learning how to like use more of that stuff to do what you want to do with it. Because that's the point in the end is like to have an idea and be like, hey, it doesn't exist yet. I'm going to make that exist. And if we just standardize this, then I think we're going to have a really bad time with that.
Yeah. Speaking as a 3rd grade teacher who thinks that teaching coding in the elementary school is really important. And I think it has to be exactly what you said, Jake. I think it has to be something that the kids learn as fun, not necessarily tested all the time the way you would test all your core curriculum, but maybe introduced in the format of like a technology class where the kids go as a special, like music, art, gym.
So it's an
technology.
Extracurricular, you're thinking?
Yeah, like part of the curriculum, but not the core curriculum necessarily, but yet introducing little kids into what it really is and how to code, and then as they get older, offer it as like
a thing?
A middle school teacher.
Yeah? How do you feel about all this? Oh my gosh, we got the mom table back there.
Mom squad.
Mom squad. Mom
Both
squad. What do you
moms
think?
are teachers. No wonder we're doing a podcast about science.
My
being
mom
the
is a
prodigy
teacher, too.
of teachers. Yours too.
Really?
There you go. This is what happens when teachers have children.
They make podcasts.
They do. They make podcasts.
So yes.
I agree that coding is very important. However, in the state of education nowadays and with the data collecting and everything that we're required to do, if we're going to take it seriously, I think it has to be part of the core. And because our curriculum spirals all the time, I think it'd be introduced like in the kindergarten age and, and just build upon it. And then as they get into high school, then you can have advanced courses in it if the kids, so desire to do this.
Sure.
But I'm really afraid that, if it just kind of went as one of those foo-foo fluffy courses, which I don't think anything is because I love art and music.
Right.
But those are the first things that get cut all the time.
Yeah.
So if we're going to look at this and it's going to be important and we're going to value it, and we're going to put money toward it, it needs to be a part of, I would hook it on probably with math, because I see it more as a mathematical language. So I would probably, try to build it in there.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is almost a new paradigm for teaching. This is just ridiculous. This has not happened before, where a completely different way of thinking and communicating. I can't remember or think about the last time this happened, because it's not like the industrial age. It wasn't like learning to pull a lever or something like that. This is a completely different way that we're building our brains now.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect everyone going forward in humanity. And this is it's a tricky thing. Yeah. It's a tricky thing.
It doesn't really fit into a category super nice, because it has so many applications.
We can only speak about it in metaphors. We used a few of them tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wild.
It's very cool. Well, if anybody else has any final thoughts or anything, that'd be fantastic. Oh, we got one over here.
Hi, I'm Krista-Lee's little sister.
Fantastic.
First, I want to say, I'm a nurse, and when you guys started talking about coding, I was like having a heart attack. I'm like, you guys are crazy. And then I figured out what you guys were talking about.
I can always translate for you later.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I know. You do that well. I kind of agree with introducing it when you're little, because, again, my background, you learn better when you're little and it sticks. And then having it as an elective, because, everyone has different interests. Like, right now, I'm getting my doctorate. I'm trying to propose a healthy lifestyles class.
Okay.
And I want it in the elementary level. I don't want it in the high school level, because there's so many comorbidities that exist with obesity and everything else, and that is obviously not going to be Common Core. And I believe this kind of goes with it. Like, I don't know if it's going to be Common Core, but have it be an elective, because I also think it's important. And I just...
So when Krista-Lee and I went through school we didn't go to the same school or anything like that, but we know that we went around the same time in humanity. For us, at least for me, code literally was something that, like, somewhere in high school there was that, like, everyone in math took that one computer programming one class or whatever, and then it was really your responsibility to continue taking those classes if you wanted to.
So you had it better than I did then.
Really?
Because let me tell you how the public schools here went.
Yeah,
and that
we're different cities.
Right, we were in different cities. So I went through the public school system, and nothing was offered until high school. And then in high school, there was one computer class. It was already upper level, and you had to pass a test to get into it.
Oh.
So if you didn't have a computer in your house, then you could not take the computer class.
They didn't have a computer lab for it?
They did, but because you had to pass a basic test on computers in order to take the class, and they did not offer a basic class. So the only people who got into the class were people who had computers at home.
Of course. That's a bummer.
And therefore, they were the only ones with access. I didn't have a computer at home, therefore I couldn't. And if you weren't in the class, then you had no access to the lab. So I had zero computer access when I was in high school, even though we had a computer lab, because of those rules.
That's crazy. I went to a school where there was 3 or 4 design labs. There were 2 or 3 coding labs. Like, my entire career is because of the computers that were in my high school.
Dang.
Yeah, no. And I would have loved to have it. Like, my entire computer experience started when I was 18 in college, and one of my professors had to explain to me what email was.
This is fascinating. We've got a few other people here real quick. I think Rebecca's over here, right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so 2 quick points.
Yes.
So we are already teaching elementary school kids to code in a successful way. I'm a FIRST robotics mentor, and we have FIRST has Lego League, and so kids program Lego Mindstorms, and we have competitions about it, and I'm gonna have
and that can get hardcore.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing real stuff with Mindstorms.
Yes. And I'm going to have 240 elementary schoolers coming to a tournament to, like, show me their cool coded robots.
Wait, when is that happening? Is there, like, any way we could have you on and we could talk about it? I'm not joking right now.
Yeah, the tournament's going to be November 15th at Richards King.
Maybe in a couple, can we have you on? I'm sorry, we're doing this right on the show. Let's talk later. Let's talk later. We need an episode on that. That's awesome.
On FIRST, I'd have
amazing.
to run that past some people, but yes.
That's wonderful.
And then the other thing is, so I went to engineering school for university, and everything was primarily, like, project-based and really application-based. And so, like, I couldn't pass some of my math class without being able to code. Because, A, it made my life easier. Like, it made my life being able to code an answer to a really complicated math problem way easier. And also, it was just built into the curriculum. So we already have, like, applications of this. Like, I had to use MATLAB to get through math class, which is, like, advanced calculator, basically.
Okay.
And to get through web design classes, I couldn't get through web design classes without being able to write my own PHP. It was just inherently built into all levels of the curriculum.
You're a couple years younger than Krista-Lee and I think, right? I'm trying to get a sense of where this is happening in the schools.
Becca's like the same age as me.
I'm 24.
You are 10 years younger than us.
Thanks, David.
You know what? For me, at least. I don't know about Krista-Lee, but me.
I didn't go to a humanities-based university.
Right.
I went to a university that was technology-based. So
we had one class. We did have one class in high school where there was like, have you heard of website coding? This is of course this is like late '90s, whatever.
Internet.
But that's fascinating. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and just shout out to First, like on my robotics team, we kind of it's not all about robots. Like we build a robot, but there's teams devoted just to outreach and sponsorship and fundraising. And if kids want to do that, they can do that. If they want to be on the controls team that writes code, they can do that. If they want to do
is this an extracurricular? Is this something they're signing up for, or is it part of the school core?
It is extracurricular.
Extracurricular. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, but
do you think something like that should be core? It's a weird question to ask.
I don't know how to answer that,
right.
Because if you make it core, then has to be grades assigned, and there has to be
It's tricky.
Whereas we have the freedom to tell our kids that they can do whatever they want on our team.
Right. And that's very much to what we were speaking to in the second part.
That's exactly what you're speaking to.
And I think we got someone over there in the back, and then we might have to start wrapping it up here. We've been going for a while. This is one of the things I love about doing this show is just with the other four people, you always leave every episode thinking new thoughts.
Yeah.
This is exponentially more. I'm in love with this third act thing. We might, anyway, whatever. Do more of this. Yes.
Hi.
Hey, who the heck are you?
I'm Megan.
Hey, Megan.
I just have a really quick point that goes along with what Krista-Lee was saying. And that, so she was saying that at her school there was only one computer lab. And I've been in schools now that still only have one computer lab. So assuming that this program would be part of the Common Core, would it be fair to students that can only afford just a single computer lab? And is it realistic to assume that much funding would go into schools, and especially into, just for example, the MPS system that is struggling just to have books for every student?
Yeah.
So are we going to say that no, now you have to have computers in all these schools? I really don't think that the way education is looked at in politics now, that's really feasible. And then also what you were saying about kids that can only take computer science because they have a laptop or something at home.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, back to her. I think that also has to be translated. If students have to do homework at home, obviously, they need some sort of technology there. And that's assuming a lot that, students don't necessarily have a computer at home.
I know there's some schools that do the thing where you can check them out to the whole class and stuff like that. There's a lot of...
but that's you're probably a very privileged school to be able to do that. That's assuming that every school is able to do that.
That's fair.
And
if it's going to be core.
If it's going to be core, then we have to have that funding there.
That's fair.
And are we assuming that funding is going to be there?
There has to be math books in every school.
Right, and that's way more feasible than, all right, we're going to give every student an iPad that they can take home, and also trust a second grader with an iPad to take home on the bus. I really don't think that that's going to be possible.
Do you have an idea of what 20 years from now, what part of that answer might be?
Well, 20 years from now, that's sort of hard to say in the way that technology is going, but also in the way that education is going politically. Who knows what could happen, especially so much that's been cut just from university in general. How do we know what's going to happen?
Yeah. Okay, so maybe this thing...
So 20 years from now, we're all studying German because that's where you can go to school for free. Yeah. Although, just to mention for the buying computers for school... So what is it? Amazon, who's selling their...
Yeah, you can get your 6-pack of tablets for $250 now.
Yeah, you can buy tablets by the 6-pack.
They want them to be throwaway. Actually,
it's the Fire, isn't it? The Amazon Fire.
No, I have a comment. So, based on the conversation that we've been having in this room right now, it almost seems like, you know what? New York is kind of talking about like everyone is going to be doing this, but it sounds like there are definitely places inside of America and probably in the world where like this is already happening, and it's probably people that it's probably private educations that have a lot of money
and there's some public
they're like,
ones
you
that
know
do
what,
have good.
you go to like this school K through 5, this is buy a MacBook Pro school. Like, can
I
you
went to a
afford,
public school
you know
and
what I mean?
they
would give them out.
It was good, but there's plenty of places where it's the opposite.
But I think that there's some great things raised here about like, are we going to have devices for these kids? Are they going to be able to take them home? Is it just going to happen in the classroom? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of want to bring this back 1 second to like Skritter. I work
Please
with
do.
schools.
It'll be a nice circle.
Yeah, I work with schools all the time, and we're like technology, and they're like, hey, we've got Chromebooks, and I'm like, yeah, your trackpad is just not great for this kind of interaction. We have kids with one-on-one devices, and like that's awesome. One of the largest things that I personally struggle with though is like getting my teachers to read the emails that I send out to them. So like there's that too, and I think that this kind of harps to this idea of like, if Facebook, if Google, if all these different companies are going to be offering third-party support, it's really tough because like who is responsible for the child's education at that point? Because the companies are like, obviously they're doing this, they want to make, they're trying to make some money somewhere off of this, but and so are they going to go through and like make sure that this is core and standardized or do these things, or they're just like, yep, we've created this great software, like you guys figure it out? I think it needs to be like a combination of some companies need to work with students and target their levels, make them fun and exciting and do these things. And then the school just kind of has to say, we trust you, like let's work together, let's make this happen. But like everyone needs to be responsible in this. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah. The problem here is that this thing requires hardware. This thing requires a level of entry. It's
hardware, software, everything.
We can sit here and talk about needing math books and reading books and all those things. That's expensive, but this is maybe on a whole different level. And maybe we, the 20 years out thing, that was kind of like, it was like a whatever, it gave us an excuse to do a whatever, but like there might be a new layer of private school where you know what I mean? It might be one of these things where either this does go the direction where everything gets integrated in because it becomes so clear that so many jobs need that skill or that way of communicating, or like we were, not to be too pessimistic, but if it goes the other direction where the money's not in the right place, but of course we just got done talking about just throwing money doesn't do it. But if we have schools that don't have it, it might become these side programs. That might be maybe that's just how this works. Maybe that's just how this lives. Maybe this is part of that paradigm shift. I don't know. I'm just throwing that all out there to try to end this episode, and we can think about all of it. I don't know how I feel about it personally.
Time to wrap it up.
But it is time to finish up here, and this was really awesome. I really want to thank all of you for coming tonight. This is really cool. It's the first time we've done this. We have 5 more of these things, and we're super excited about it. In 3 weeks, we're going to be talking to Thomas Malaby. Isn't that right?
Correct.
And we're speaking with him about, I know what it is. Oh, you testing me? Games and society. She had that look in her eye. She had that look in her eye.
I lost the last word. I was like, games and stuff.
We're going to be back here in a couple of weeks talking about games and what they mean in society, video games specifically, stuff like that, with our guest Thomas Malaby. And then we've got Stuart then a month after that.
Yes.
This is awesome. We learned a lot tonight, and I'm so pleased that you're all here. We want to thank UWM, the Digital Humanities Lab. We want to thank ABC Audio Video, which threw some equipment at us here to help us make this possible, stuff that we didn't have. That was super duper cool. And I think with that, we'll get out of here. Let's see. Krista-Lee, if people want to find you on Twitter and talk to you about their thoughts about all of this, they can do that where?
You can find me at GamerAnthro.
Fantastic. Vee Laabs?
You can find me on Twitter at bear_Annika.
Wonderful, wonderful. Jake, if people want to either talk to you personally or if you'd like to put some info out there about Skritter, please do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Twitter at Critical Owl, and I don't really know what that is anymore. Maybe I should change it, but it works. I like owls. I like to be critical. Anyways, you can do that, or you can visit our website. It's skritter.com, SKRITTER. We should have actually like our new fancy site coming out really soon. And we offer people free trial. They can come and check it out, and it would be great to kind of get some listeners. If you're into that kind of stuff, come check it out, download it. Learn to write some kanji or some characters, and have some fun with it.
That is super cool. Well, thank you very much, Jake, for being here.
Thank you for
tonight.
having me.
It was a lot of fun. It was fun to get to know you, and it was fun to just talk, too.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do that second one where we just talked about, I just wanted to talk. It was great. Loved it. Thank you all for being here. You can find the show on Twitter at Technophiles Pod, or go to our actual website, technophilespodcast.com, or listen to the show on iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher. It's weird. I'm not usually looking people in the eye when I say all this. It's a little strange. I'm loving it, though. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube by searching Technophiles, where you can find links to this show and the other shows we do, like the Technophiles Newscast and Branching Dialogue. Guys, I'll see you guys next week, but I'll see all of you here in 3 weeks at the Digital Humanities Lab for our next live show. Until then, you can find me on Twitter at RaptorPaint. Thank you, everyone. Round of applause, everybody. That was great. That was good.